Well, good morning. I think perhaps Voynich said it best. Weird. Yeah, it's a little unusual. I have to say, if I seem a little off my game a bit, it is, well, I'll have to sort of explain this. As often, or sometimes at least happens, I get a bit of inspiration on Friday afternoon after spending the week just sort of, marinating with things, sort of, letting it kind of percolate and sit there for a moment, sort of braise, if you will, if you're into cooking. I had this idea, some thoughts that were kind of rolling through my head, and so then, thank you, Mojo Shop, I appreciate it. He says, way to use your noodle. Yes. So I was. I had this idea, and that is the titular name of the show today: Interpretation, Interpolation, and Intermediation. But then I was just sort of pondering those thoughts, and then I got up, as often happens, I got up very early in the morning this morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and decided I need some coffee because that's how we go. And after having some coffee and spending some time talking about interesting things with my wife, as we often do, we're talking about a variety of different concepts. And then I laid back down with her, took a little nap, and had a very, very fascinating, very interesting dream. It's one of those that has stuck with me. It's very, very unusual, and to such a degree that it's going to take me a minute to process it. I can't really elucidate it well right now, as these things often go. But so I woke up about 6:45 again, and I have been just sort of in that fog of trying to process all of what occurred with that dream. So perhaps I'll bring it up tomorrow in the late session, the Sola Scriptura. That was kind of related to that. So we'll see how that goes. But again, anyway, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here this morning. It is a typical morning here in the Pacific Northwest with all sorts of, just kind of drizzle and rain. It's a perfect morning for coffee and getting together with my tribe, my family here. It's great to see everybody, Voynich and Bob Glowbusters, and of course, Cami, Eisling 717. I can't wait to meet you guys at Flattoberfest. And of course, that is coming up real soon. It's going to be next weekend. In fact, this time next week, we'll all be hanging out together. So excited about that. And if you have not yet gotten your tickets for Flattoberfest, please do. I'd love to meet you. I'll be making some coffee, hanging out with Cami and Zach. Good times for all in the chat. And making coffee for you guys. Hopefully I'll, Karen, if you're here, Karen B, are you here? If you are, can you just send me a message and tell me how many people you anticipate? I'm trying to figure out how much bean I need. So I see you are here. Excellent. So let me know how much bean or how many people you anticipate, and I'll try to figure out how much bean I need to get, as well as the other accoutrement. I've had some folks also offer to kind of help out with that, so I'm delighted for that. So excited. Also somewhat terrified. Because, I've become a hermit. So we have that going for us, which is nice. So we have, Flattoberfest coming up next weekend. And hopefully by then I'll be able to just upload and have a premiere of an interview I did now quite some time ago, it's been 3 months, I think, with Seven Ravenwolf. And it's a great conversation. It just needed some editing, some touch up, and there was some audio issues, and a couple of times it froze up. So it needed some editing. And then I had all kinds of issues, tech, all kinds of weird stuff there. But hopefully we'll just do that as a premiere, and then I'll have to figure out what to do for Sunday, because I'll be traveling on Sunday. There's the Flattoberfest link. Thank you for Dawn for trying to get that in, but it's worked for me unless I just need to check the cache. No, it seems to work okay. So we got that going for us, which is nice. So again, Flattoberfest coming up next Saturday. And there's going to be, from what I understand, if you check Karen B's channel, there is some gatherings prior on Friday. I don't come in until my plane lands. You love this. 300. Oh, that's awesome. So I need to get some bean. So my flight lands at, you'll love this, 9:11. p.m. on Friday. I didn't set that up or anything. It just sort of happened. So I got to get my whatever luggage I'm bringing and get the rental car and get to the motel and everything. So unless you guys go late, well, we'll see. I think a couple of people have my phone. You can text me and we'll try to get together. Ted, welcome, my friend. Also, Liz the Iron Maiden. I think I saw Joe Ray in chat. Winston's always great to see you, my friend. Brian Stavely, welcome, my friend. Let's see. I know I'm going to have a Mandela effect here. Just from Brian being here. Be like, you're affected. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So what are we doing today? Yes, we're doing this thing. And so one of the things my wife and I were talking about this morning is we both love words. We're fascinated with words and just information. We're just curious. We're just nerds, you know. I mean, one of the things we had in common was as children, we both used to read not just the encyclopedia, but the dictionary. That's right. So I learned to read before I turned 2, according to my mom. And I can always remember reading and loving words and helping my brother and sister, who are 4 and 5 years older than me, respectively, and helping them with their English and other homework when I was a kid. It's just something I enjoyed doing. And so I always loved words and reading. And I can recall very clearly, I think I was probably 4 or 5 years old when sort of the light bulb went off about the idea of prefixes and suffixes and how to figure out the root word. And from that, especially with a little bit of exposure to Latin, you could come up with any, even very long multisyllabic words. It's pretty impressive for a little kid, but figure out the primary meaning of most things. And so the ability to do that and understand, what the nature of the word were. And then, of course, when I discovered etymology and the history of words, it was kind of all over. I was really just, again, a word nerd. I love the idea of communication and trying to elucidate ideas. And part of that is just not having, there is, I always love trying to find the right word, but sometimes the right word has to be chosen well considering your audience. And so, again, if you're speaking to a group of people who doesn't do English very well, or let's say you're teaching a group of youngsters, it doesn't help you to do a college level abstract. So you have to. Part of it is choosing the right way to transmit what you're trying to say. And I've always kind of had a struggle with that, and sometimes this is the source of my becoming sort of long-winded and loquacious, is trying to figure out when I've sort of hit that spot and put together what goes on in my head, because it's I've often described it as something of a pachinko machine. So it just goes a little nutty sometimes. So trying to do that, I feel like I don't often get there. And it is easier when I'm doing teaching in person. I can see kind of the light bulb go off over their head, and that tells me when I can move on. And one of the things that kind of works when you're especially teaching or going through ideas with adults is to use still kind of a pedagogical approach, and to start with, especially with adults, you have to start with things that everybody sort of agrees with and understands, and kind of moves forward from there. Because if you present, as I'm sure you've discovered already, ideas that are completely new and unusual, or perhaps contrary to given ideas, people will immediately sort of push back and they become skeptical immediately. So it's often helpful, and again, this is part of what I'm working on with the Awakening Project, is not just to better understand how it is that we got here, but how we might best get others here as well. And part of that, again, is using the sort of a process of asking questions and getting them to use their own sense of logic, if they have that, but certainly a way where you're not putting them on the defensive. They're not having to defend something. You're leading them sort of down the path where they can fill in the blanks themselves. So this is part of it. But the idea of building on things that we all know, understand, and agree with, and then kind of moving out from there. And so you build on this foundation. That's kind of the process through which we go through it. And so part of that, I guess, is to better use if the idea of semantics, right? So where you can kind of understand what you're working with. So again, the prefix of these words, inter, I-N-T-E-R, which again, if you just take the word by itself, to inter, that's a dead thing into a grave or a tomb, right? You're going to inter, but it's really, it's based as the prefix, it's based on Latin, and it really kind of means between, amongst, right? In the middle of. And so this is why we say, for example, interpret, right? Is to go between two languages or two different things. Such that you can exchange these ideas, right, to interpret. So that's kind of the basic thing there. Interestingly enough, of course, when I was beginning to talk about prefixes and suffixes, of course, you know that pre is to come before. So prefix, to affix something before, it comes before the word. Yes, betwixt, there you go, Voynich. And then, but we would say, well, how come suffix isn't then like postfix, right, afterwards? It's kind of an interesting way that it came about. Again, suff, when you take a look at this, the idea of to suffer, right? We think of it in terms of painful, but really to suffer has to do with going through a process. And it's now, again, a bit of semantic drift come to mean that you're suffering something and going through something bad, but really to suff is sufficient, right? It's enough. So you have, it suffices. Something is, it suffices, it's adequate, it's enough. It's sufficient, again, it's enough. Suffrage then, again, is the idea that you have the right to vote, or that you have the right to choose. Often, though, it's again an ecclesiastical sense, to suffrage, to pray, to ask a petition. But the idea of, again, to suffer, to go through, but actually so suffix really has to do with it's sub, underneath, right? So it's beneath is the original portion of Latin that it comes from, and so it's secondary. So you have the primary and then the secondary. And me too, Cami, I'm nervous and terribly excited. So the idea of to suffix, to put something, and again, as Voynich said, in betwixt, but yes, the suffix actually comes in the middle. And so these idea of prefixes, suffixes, so getting back to the idea of, so we have at the beginning here, right, so kind of talk a little bit more about, so interpretation, right, is you're taking two different ideas and going back and forth between them, so you can kind of do what is the last word here, intermediation, and media, again, is to come between, so intermediation is the in-between. It's sort of a made-up word. And then to interpolate, what is that? Well, you typically use that in math, and you see some of those mathematical figures there, is where you're working with data sets. And so you're inferring some of the positions from which you don't have data by using the other data. And most people think of this in terms of extrapolation, which is a similar word, but that really means coming up with anticipating data from outside the data sets. So extra is more, but it's more outside. So you have extrapolation, means that you're anticipating or inferring data based on your data set from outside the data set, where interpolation is to anticipate data sets from points that you do not have, but within the group. And so let's see if I have a picture of that. I did at one point. I don't know where it is now. Had a picture of what that might look like. Here's some stuff here to give you these ideas, right, of the data sets. So this is the most basic stuff, your graphs and that sort of stuff. So interpolation, you begin with these red points are known, and then you sort of interpolate the blue points there. And so this is specifically has to do with the nature of the Awakening Project and some of the information that we've gotten so far. And as I work into presenting or preparing for Phase 2, I've been doing some additional research. Yes, you can juxtapose as well, right? Put things, again, opposite one another and compare those values. As we take a look at this, so I am currently working on, and I had anticipating having some of the data results from the Awakening Project this month. And of course, Flattoberfest and some other things happened. And so it pushed me back just a little bit. I'm trying to do a number of things, which is get ready for multicasting. I have a DLive account looking at brand new Tube as well as some other platforms, just in case the big purge catches me in the net with everyone else. So far, as I was replied to somebody else's comment this very morning, with the latest takedown of a bunch of other channels, that so far I seem to be kind of safe because the two factors here: one, that our tribe remains fairly small and close knit, so I'm not working with like 285,000 subs or anything that probably they would consider, too dangerous. And the other thing is that we don't really do much in the way of expository here in terms of calling out certain events as being disingenuous, that sort of thing. Really, we're just kind of speaking more almost metaphysically about, we're doing extrapolation and interpolation here, right? We're talking more about the meaning of these things. So for the nonce, I think we're okay, but I want to prepare for that. So as I get ready, we'll probably launch that about the first of the year. We'll be simulcasting on a variety of different platforms and kind of open that up a little bit. 3Speak, yeah, and I've looked at BitChute as well. So Voynich, there are a variety of different platforms I'm kind of toying with and looking at the way that they work and that sort of thing. And I'll probably do some test runs on some of those, maybe some music streams or something to see how that goes. But so all that to kind of get back to here. So as I was doing some of the data aggregation and trying to put this, I got much of it done and some of the ideas are there, but I have to spend more time in putting it into a graphic format and kind of going through it, which I can easily explain what the findings are so far. And I think that I have inferred, or at least rather implied, to a pretty good degree what some of these things are. Some of the things that people have in common, at least on the front end, right, is that many of the people, a very large proportion of the people, come from a very small proportion of what we would say the Myers-Briggs MBTI model, which is intuitive thinkers. They might be extrovert or introvert, although introverted is more common, but N and T, the two middle letters, are the most common, but they also represent the least common in terms of that combination appearing in the overall populace. So that's was not surprising to me. That was actually rather proof of concept. But some of the other things that appeared, and again, I have told people that I'm getting much of the data sets coming from the stories that people told. And so this is also the basis of why I wanted to start this channel, was to express some of these stories, as with our great guest David from last week, and to let you know that you're not alone. There's so many people that feel isolated. But part of the process in going through this is that almost to a person, not exclusively, but almost to a person. To get started in this process, a couple of things had to happen. And one of them is that they had to have some reason for distrust, whether that was, again, intuitive thinking, just that, intuitive rather than sensing in the Myers-Briggs model means that you're looking for confirmation and validation from your a certainty about it from the narrative that you tell yourself. In other words, you're getting it from internal rather than external validation. So you're not looking for an external source of validation, and also that you're thinking through it rather than feeling it. So it's a combination of those two things that seem to be prevalent within our model. But the other thing that was, the other thing that's very common is that you must have, or again, when I say distrust, some other conspiratorial thing, like, again, not necessarily one or the other, but one of the things, for example, is that many people have a background in looking at ufology because not only is it interesting and fascinating, I think we all have this idea of many people loved this, space and the idea of extraterrestrials and this bigger world because we're fascinated, we're curious. But one of the things that we see, of course, is it seems very clear that, especially in the Western governments, U.S., U.K., the Five Eyes folks, have been, specifically hiding or occluding information about those events. And it seems very clear that their excuses are just that, swamp gas and that sort of nonsense. So we have, hey, Allison, welcome. No problem. Get you a cup of coffee, kick up your heels. All you missed is noodling and some prefix. There you go. So yeah, we take a look at that exactly that solar system there. So we get all excited about that, and so but we get the idea that the government is not to be trusted, right? That or whether it was one of these false flag events that we begin to wake up to. So there is some predisposition to have reason not to necessarily trust authority, but the primary mechanism seems to be that it required some suddenly available amount of time in which to suddenly dig deeper. Right. For many people, that was a loss of a job, or a move, or a change, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a loved one, from one reason or another. And so often these things have you not only with time on your hands, but contemplating the nature of things and asking these, again, more existential questions of why. And so as we begin to do this, right, then we start having time to really think. And I think one of the things that becomes really very clear in this entire process, because as a three-legged stool for this awakening process, or at least the project, the three aspects are: one, how did we get here, right? And so what is happening? And that seems to be very clearly that they're using a variety of really straightforward, I don't know any other way to put it, mind control techniques. It's a, MK Ultra, but it is a variety of using standard stuff like NLP, power of suggestion, hypnosis, using things, subliminal programming tools, electronic media, full spectrum programming, psychology, using the power of suggestion in a group, using peer pressure, and a variety of suggestive means to get people to, and then again, we have the whole indoctrination camps, Dunning-Kruger camps, in which they teach you that you are not to ask questions or really think about things. You simply accept and parrot what they told you is true. And the better you can do that, the smarter you are. Right. Well, what it does do is, of course, robs you of any of the actual skills that you need to measure those things. And so that's where it becomes a Dunning-Kruger factory. You just label yourself as smart because you got the gold star, because you could reiterate the things that they told you. You don't really have to think it through. In fact, it's best if you don't think it through, because if you do, again, it begins to not make sense. So we have these aspects. You kind of don't trust them. You have some time to look into it, because again, what I was getting to there is that they certainly do a great job of keeping people busy. They're so running about, have all these things to take care of, and when you're not running about doing those things, you certainly don't sit down and contemplate things. You must be entertained, watch a movie, watch some television, binge watch Netflix, listen to some music, anything, but really, think. I think that coffee is fucking terrific. And you can get some too at Flattoberfest. I'll make some for you. And so then the other aspect, of course, is once we better understand, not only what's been done, but who has begun to wake up and why, but then also the third leg is then what can we do to wake others up? And so that is the people hate you. I don't think they hate you. How did we get here? You may feel some pushback. You may feel a sense of a program and some hostility. But most of the time, my observation is that people, they push away against either what they don't understand, or they are intimidated by, or they really find uncomfortable. It's a mirror of themselves. And so when they aren't able to accept that, when it doesn't, so keep in mind, we talk a lot about vibration, right? The vibe tribe. So when we talk about things like frequency and energy, we literally manifest an energy around us. And when that doesn't work, they say opposites attract, right? We know that there's a polarity kind of thing going on as we observe things around us. Cami would describe it as magnetism, using toroidal fields. I would agree with that, especially a quadrupolar toroidal field is what we manifest around us. And so that needs to be either in sync or at least perhaps in the same wavelength, if not converse or obverse sort of frequency, the phase, right? So opposites can attract, but overall we need to be sort of at least be in a harmonic frequency with somebody. And when that does not occur, right, then they kind of rub us the wrong way. And I think that you can definitely see that manifest itself in people around you. It's been said, of course, by George Orwell, who we all are, I think, very familiar with, one of his seminal works, 1984, that the more the society drifts away from truth, the more they will hate those who speak it. And I think certainly if you are speaking truth, you are what we would call a truthling, that you're going to be sort of outcast from the primary mainstream group. And I think everyone here has come to understand, or at least accept, that there is a certain freedom and joy in not following the crowd. When you see that the crowd is lemmings and going off the cliff, then you don't want to go there. Hey, Informally Hip, hey, you never have to apologize. I'm so glad to see you and glad you're here. I'm sure that if you're interested, you can come back and catch the replay. But again, much love for you, my friend, and I hope you have a great time at the farmers market. Wish I were going. I love Granville Island. Love to go there in Vancouver. One of my favorite places, as well as the Pike Place Market in Seattle. But again, so the thought that I had today was wanted to put some of these things together and prepare you to begin thinking in a couple of different ways. One is to keep in mind what I'm getting to. If we take a look at this right here, I'll switch over to this. All right. So take a look at what you're looking at right here. This, again, was the idea of interpolation, but we have some data that's missing, right? We do have some data anemia. We don't know all the stuff. Certainly, those people working against us have a variety, in fact, an enormous amount, data sets that are nearly infinite in that they track everything we do, everywhere we go, and so they can infer a great deal about us. I have often, however, said that this is an artificial platform from which they're working in their driving behavior, so that if you begin to manifest things that are natural, especially direct contact with your Creator, and particularly love, that love counteracts fear. We're told in Scripture that perfect love casts out fear. Therefore, to me, the opposite of love is not hatred, but rather fear. The absence of love creates this panic. And so they try to keep you in a state of fear. And as such, if you manifest a state of love, it really screws up their paradigm. And as Crow 777 often will say that, again, they cannot be the gods of this world, the natural world, so they have to create an artificial world in order to be the master of it. I agree with that. So here we have this idea that we're working with waves and frequencies, and it is part of this wave and frequency. It is a combination and confluence of things that actually creates, once you kind of capture that frequency and your mind opens up to the ability to see things and the veil begins to drop, pretty much everyone that at least within our group has gone through the process of the door opens up, right? Suddenly we see things with what we would say new eyes. And in fact, I don't know anyone here who is scared of the cranani, as Ceiling Fan Man likes to say. The CV thing is not a panic for us because we know it's a lie. We have no desire or willingness to wear the mask or take the shot or do anything that they say because we're not afraid. However, our compadres out there who buy into it are they're terrified. I can see it in their eyes. They're literally terrified. And I do feel some compassion for them because they have no idea. But we see things in a very different way. The veil has lifted. And so it is, a combination of, it's a sense of power, right, that you have, that you take back sort of your self-sovereignty, if you will. That we no longer, we begin to understand the straw man fiction, and we begin to understand the way that they try to manipulate and control us, such that we now can take back control of our own lives. And then I think for many people, especially those who investigate alternative cosmology, you come to this idea that if it is a created place, then there must be a creator. And, for myself, and I know others who have a direct connection with the Creator, we very much encourage doing so yourself, because I would again say that my experience is the Creator and the family of creators is the very definition of love, and you will never have a really bad experience. I mean, it can be painful because they do change you. It's not just a friendly sort of thing. It's love, and love from a parent will cause discipline. And sometimes discipline isn't fun to go through things, especially changing But that those changes improve you, and coming out the other side is so much better. But if you have that connection with the Creator, you are now in a very different vibe than those around you who are apparently what we observe as the enemy of that Creator and the enemy of you, right? And that you were created to be essentially, I don't know any other way to put it, the God of this world, sort of with a little g. You were made to be the master and have dominion over this place, to be able to speak things as that are not as though they are, and to manifest your will into this world. Now, things have changed a great deal. Not only has the knowledge been taken away, but I think the capability was diminished vastly during what we would call the deluge. That things changed substantially in the natural world around us to make it much more difficult to manifest those things. But yes, Winston, I continued praying for you to realize the highest possible outcome. That is a petition. But so this is kind of what I'm getting to, right? Is these ideas that we are working specifically in the nature of electromagnetic waveforms, and that this is part of the awakening process to find yourself at a specific range of frequencies, it would seem, or at least harmonic frequencies, which accounts for some people being of a different emotional makeup, and yet coming to some of the similar realizations that it is a confluence and combination of things that provide this. And we know from additive synthesis that this can happen when you begin to add frequencies together. What you get is, again, different outcomes, such that the frequencies begin to add to themselves. And you can begin to see peaks such as this. And you get this overall thing. And so ultimately, you end up with something like this, the cymatic representation, right? This is sound energy in a medium. But I think that, again, if you have emotional energy in a medium, and then one of the things that's fascinating to me, and I wanted to discuss this with Cami and Zach at the upcoming Flattoberfest, is the idea of, if you're familiar with orgone, that sort of stuff, orgonite, that there might be some way to measure. I know about Carillion photography and a bunch of different things, but if we could use some sort of fMRI to really take a look at the electromagnetic sphere and aura, if you will, that surrounds people and going through different emotions. If we could measure this and begin to see specific manifestations, would be outstanding. And we could measure really the baseline for people both within and without the truth community. I think that would be a fascinating study. One of the things that is specific to phase 2 in the Awakening Project is taking a look at blood type. And blood type has been one of those things where it's very interesting, and it does seem that they are doing their best to include it. Of course, there's the 4 major blood types, A, B, AB, and O, with the RH factor, positive or negative, which then comes up with 8 different groups. My wife and I were actually talking about this morning, and so she's in the most common, which is O positive, and I am the most infrequent, which is AB negative. So very, very interesting stuff there. But what I wasn't really familiar with is that I knew that there was a number of them. I wasn't aware that there are. So the A, B, O, and AB represent antigens that appear on the outside of the blood cells. And so as we look at that, one of the things that I was not familiar with, I think, is that there are over 600 antigens within human blood. A variety, just a whole variety of them, and that has to do with histamines and whether or not you have allergic reactions to things, a reaction to different things. I wasn't aware that there was that many, and so as I get into it, I'm like, this is fascinating because iron is a central component of blood and is intrinsically tied to it. Well, iron, of course, is magnetic. We have ferromagnetism, and electric, it's a good conductor of electricity. So in addition to carrying oxygen. So these are fascinating things to me and something I'd like to look much deeper into. Of course, the idea of mesmerism, Dr. Mesmer, his initial idea, again, we take now mesmerism to mean in hypnosis, right? Much like we were talking about the power of suggestion. But originally, Mesmer was fascinated by the idea. He thought there was a magnetic fluid within the body that he could control with magnets and use it for, healing and that sort of stuff. And he did have some success to the point where, again, he was investigated by the French by the French royalty, and they basically do what they do now to people who do not go along with the mainstream viewpoint. They just tossed him out, but they had confirmed that much of his stuff actually was working. Well, he got to a point where he felt like he didn't even need to use the magnets, that he could control it with his mind. Again, I can't discount that. We get to this place of he thought that there was some specific ferrous magnetic fluid within the body. I think that's probably within the blood. I think it's part of the blood plasma makeup group itself. But it certainly is interesting, and I'd love to dig a little bit more deeply into some of these ideas. But that is part of what's included in phase 2, along with other questions regarding birth order. And some other family history things, as well as specific experiential things. Because, it does go back to frequency and magnetism. And one of the other things that I've been talking to Mark Bloom about is this idea that, one of the side projects I've been working on for a long time now is water, and the very interesting, fascinating, almost magical properties, it's mystic, of water. Water being now, we can certainly display and demonstrate that it shows a kind of not only memory, but it responds directly to intention, and such that what it not only shows, again, a kind of memory, but also a sort of sentience, that it seems to have intelligence and even personality, and has preferences and likes and dislikes. It's fascinating. But this idea that we look at of genetic memory that's been now shown, and again, they're holding on the mainstream stories that it becomes, it modifies the DNA. Yep, there you go, disciple of the Messiah, blood and water, exactly what I'm getting to. These ideas that the genetic memory can hold specific traumas, and they're talking about the DNA. I just think that everything that they're telling us is some way misdescribed. So I don't take anything that they describe to us at face value. From the atomic model to the nature of the periodic table to certainly the cosmological model, all these things is to me a misdescription of what's actually going on, and very specifically to misdirect us. It's stage magic. It's misdirection. Look over here. Don't look over there. And to make very difficult and complicated things that should be pretty straightforward and easy. And I think they are. But again, these ideas that it's perhaps not the DNA that carries some of the trauma. In fact, even in Scripture, it says the sins of the father are passed down to the third and fourth generation, and up to 7 generations, right? But we see that traumatic events, they've done tests, can be recognized by, for example, they use different animal models, including worms, that they were given electrical shocks under certain circumstances consistent with light. And so when they saw light, they'd get a shock, and so they'd avoid light. And then they could expose even their grandchildren to light, and they'd never experience the shock, but they would withdraw from the light based on this trauma. Well, the really fascinating kind of gross thing here is that when they took those who had experienced the trauma themselves and ground them up and served them in a soup that the other unrelated, not genetically similar worms ate. So they kind of cannibalism there, but they would pick up some of those traits as well. So the idea that is they were again thinking that it was carried in the proteins and the DNA. I'm of the mind that it's carried actually in the water, and so when they got the ingest of the water had the memory of it, and I think that's probably very close. We are 75 to 85% water, depending on age, gender, chemistry, and another variety of other factors. But we're a very large part of water, and so again, the creation mythos has us. Not only, of course, in the Bible, we're created from the dust of the earth, and so from the dust that you come out, to the dust you shall return. But some of the mythos have us a combination of all the things, so that we're made of the earth, yes, but we also have water, right? We're made of water. We have fire, right? The spark of life that we're given, as well as air, that we have the breath of life. So here we go. We're a combination of all, we're made of all of our surrounding material, as well as Mike says, the salt of the earth. So there you go. That we're part of our surroundings, and we're cannot be separated from it. And we take this trauma, and again, so the idea that trauma is transferable. I think again, it's been shown that as much as they keep trying to prove that we're operate like a computer, the fifth element. I think there's definitely truth in the movies, lies in the news. That's one of my wife's favorite movies is The Fifth Element. So these these ideas that they've been trying to prove that we run like a machine, and then compare the mind to a computer because they're working on the transhumanism idea. But it's been shown that that's actually poppycock, and that in fact they cannot show where the memory is stored, and it does not seem to be stored in the brain at all. And we could also demonstrate that people who have, we've talked about this before, people who have had transplants, like heart transplants, lung transplants, but it's very specifically the heart. Those who are the recipients can pick up preferences for food, preferences for things, and even memories, specific memories of the donor who is now dead. Very fascinating stuff. And again, it seems it's connected to this idea of magnetism, electricity, and water. That there is this, again, interconnectedness of all things, if you will, and it goes with the luminiferous ether. We are part and parcel of a created universe, and as such, we are intrinsically linked to it, and it is designed to respond to our intentions, and that we can. Again, I don't want manifest that. I don't want to say bend it to our will, but I think that there's something to be said with that. Certainly, that is my view of what magic is. Especially, again, we come back to this idea of blood being used in almost every ritual, sacrifice, and all kinds of black magic. The blood is required. That not just in a sacrificial way, but the blood is a component that's necessary, for example, to manifest entities from another dimension. That's always a requirement, but the most powerful spells use blood. So I think there's definitely something to it. Even in the book of Genesis, which Wayne McCroy and I went through in Sola Scriptura, the very first few chapters of Genesis, the idea that when Cain killed his brother Abel, that God, when he shows up, the father says, "Hey, where's your brother?" He says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And he says, "Hey, his blood calls out to me from the ground." And again, I don't think that's a mistake, right? That these stories have meaning. There's elements of truth. Even if I think it's all, my view is that it's all based on truth. It is as it's written. Is there multiple layers of meaning? Absolutely. But at its basic foundation, it describes actual events in a very simplified and probably very truncated way. You've got 8 chapters covering about 2,500 to 3,000 years, so it's difficult. Quasi-luminous blood over intent. Do you mean quasi-luminous the YouTube channel? Because I don't usually discuss other YouTube channels other than those who are personal friends of mine. I don't do positive or negative reviews of other channels. But, certainly there is all kinds of stuff. You can certainly research on your own these ideas of blood libel, of blood being involved in all kinds of manifestation of the will. How about that? We'll put it that way. So again, I think that there's value in the information. My personal recommendation is to stay well clear of again, if you try to manipulate, cheat the system, right? This is, I think, what we see with karmic shrugging, is the idea that they're trying to get away from the blowback that often occurs with trying to twist the creation to do something that was not intended to do, right? So my view is that the entire of creation was made with a certain frequency range, resonance that was designed to respond to us in a certain way. And it has to be within the context of its original design and frequency. So it must be within the will of the creator. If you try to go against that, right, because of polarity, you can flip it around and use the same energy against itself, right? Like the idea of kung fu, right, which is defensive, but you're taking the opponent's energy and using the momentum and the mass against them. So you keep that momentum in motion, you just redirect it. And I think that's very much sort of what dark energy does, is it takes the positive energy and redirects it. But by doing that, you're going to incur blowback, right? And the idea of trying to, so I would just say avoid things that cause blowback. To me, the very best way to approach this is to, again, go get in touch with the original source of the power, and that is the creator. And if you behave in harmony with his will and his intent, I think you'll have a much better time than if you try to become the God of this world yourself, the God of the big G, and control things. You can't manage it. It's not you. And so the world could never be any bigger than you. And again, it will crush you beneath its wheels. That's how I see it. But again, we put these ideas back together with that of language, spoken word, Latin, intention carried within the words themselves, that the spoken word carries power. Again, we go back to the ideas of Genesis and creation, that the creator spoke into existence all things. And almost every single creation mythos has this, including those where he sings it into existence. And I find that absolutely beautiful. So here we have these ideas and trying to put them all together. And so I think this is all part and parcel of what's included in the Awakening project, but clearly identifies what they have done to us, right? That they better understand through occulted information and very old information, the very basics about how the human spirit functions, not just our mind, but our spirit and our will, and how to kind of turn that against most people. If you'll pay attention, most of these propaganda pieces, right? So if you look around you right now, the idea of getting people to wear a mask, what do? They use their good intentions against them by saying, you're the normal one if you wear the mask. You're the good person. People who don't wear the mask, they're not the good person. They're the bad person. They're selfish, right? You're the hero. You're trying to save other people's lives. So it's not just about saving yourself, right? It's about, I do it for you and you do it for me. And that's patent nonsense, and you know it. I mean, any amount of research will indicate that's just straight up poppycock. But that's the mindset that they're using to try to get people to do it. It's the same with politics, right? You're the good guy if you take this set of beliefs, and the other guys are the bad guys. So they're using people's best intentions against them. And that's how they do it. It's the same. I mean, go back to, again, World War II in Germany. I'm not even going to use the words to describe it, but the evil that was done in the name of good, right? It always is. So they get you to accept, they can get you to accept preposterous things. They can get you to do terrible things. So yes, virtue signaling virtue. It's exactly what it is. That's when people wear the mask. They are doing it as a form of virtue signaling, and they do it in such a haughty nature, right? It's very silly. And it should be very clear to anybody who pays any attention, but they don't, right? They simply stop thinking. And again, I don't see these things to diminish or be condescending to those who are not among us in any way. Simply observing what we see, and I think most people here have gotten pushback of one kind or another. Some people, a lot of pushback. We saw David Weiss in his recent video at Trader Joe's get an immense amount of pushback from simply not wearing a mask. Something that's not really a law, can't be demonstrated to be, a mandate. No, those are guidances, and guidance is a suggestion. And even the police aren't, they don't know the law. They're just doing what they're told. And everybody does, right? Just do as you're told, without ever questioning the nature of, the legality of, or the morality of what they're told to do. It must be good. And so these people turn into what I call mask holes, right? They become very, very unpleasant folks because they don't want to wear it. But by God, if they have to, you're not going to get away with not doing it, right? So very much like we see the crabs that pull other crabs, try to get out of the pot, they'll pull them right back in. you're not getting out. Yeah, that's very, very much how people behave. So these are the kinds of things that we're currently facing, and so these are the ideas that I want you to have in mind as we move forward. Then the next few weeks, I intend to open up, take the lid a little bit off water and what it means. This fascinating thing we're told is 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. Again, I call poppycock on that. I don't think that's actually true. I don't think 2 gases put together suddenly behave as a liquid. In fact, a liquid that defies in almost 50 different ways, at least 42 different ways, which I'm familiar, defies the projections of material science. It does not comport to any of the things that we typically know. For example, compression and its density, and it has an exclusion zone. It changes density. When you get to the solid, it actually becomes less dense than the liquid, so it can float on top. It's just a ton of different ways that it defies expectations, and it's a very, very special. It's a very, very special material. And again, I don't think it is what they say it is. So it is part and parcel, again, of who we are. Life would not be possible without water and without sunlight. And so there's your electricity, your magnetism, and your water all in one swell foop, if you will. So I want you to have these things in mind and consider what these things might mean, along with frequency and vibration. These things all, I think, work together. And so as we dig a little deeper into this, I'm going to again open up the can a bit on the nature of water. It's going to take a few weeks to really dig through that. I have been trying for more than 2 years to put together a 2-hour show for Crow, and I can't do it. I can't do it in 2 hours. It is simply just too deep, if you will. But it's a fascinating topic, and it's one that I think you'll find intriguing as well. Just the nature of what water is and how it relates to us as humans and as beings and in our world, and what it is, and how badly they've misdescribed it, and how much they try to hide from us. And I mean, it's right there. It's like the material science is right there, and they rarely teach any of it, even at the same time admitting that it is a very unique and very special and difficult to know. And so, again, keeping in mind that as Cammie and I discussed in the episode about even the rocks will cry out, those are crystals. Water takes on a crystalline structure, as you know, when it freezes and takes on its solid form. And so we certainly see this with ice crystals, snowflakes, the unique characteristics. And again, they look very much like what we see in terms of cymatics as well. And so this self-organizing structure, things that are self-organizing systems, we would say has a kind of sentience. It's alive. So now we're getting into some really weird stuff, and the kind of woo that we're told, well, that's the kind of woo that'll get the channel taken down, probably, if we get too deep into it. But these are the kind of things I want you to have in mind, both before those of us who are going to Flattoberfest and sitting there in the lab and getting hands-on with magnetism, electricity. I know it's shocking, right? You'll be attracted to it. The jokes aren't going to get any better. I promise. But these ideas, right, that we are all vibrating at specific frequencies, that if you are connected to the original and biggest and purest power source, that is the Creator, and manifest love is just like these stained glass windows that you are putting out, not a reflection necessarily, but it's coming through you, and you are sort of a filter, and you filter that with your own unique frequency. And it makes a beautiful picture. Each one of those is separate and individual, but it requires all of them to create the entire picture. And that's sort of my view of the nature of the world, that we are all intended to be a part of something larger, and we play our part perfectly. And the only way to do that is to connect to the source of perfection and light, the Creator. When it's dark, you cannot see this picture. It goes away. And if you replace any of those pictures with any of those lenses or those pieces of glass with just gray, which is what they're trying to do to us, and make it just gray and indistinguishable, uniform, then it won't be anything of what it is that we are designed to be: unique, individual, creative beings who are self-creative, and that we manifest these things in a unique way. And thus we should not then try to get other people to do as we do, or judge them for not doing as we do. or thinking as we think, or accepting what we accept, that a matter of perspective. Even this image that you're seeing now is simply a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional thing. Any change of perspective would change the entire view. And certainly you don't have the temperature there. You don't feel the cold, smell the smells, get the wind. You don't have any of that. Right? The air pressure, you can't experience any of that, but you can get a sense of it just a little bit by looking. And I think this is part of the nature of where we are in the world and how we can express it to one another. Each of us is sort of a jigsaw puzzle piece, and put together, we can make something beautiful. But separate, when we, as we get more separate, or as they try to make us more uniform, then either of those things works against what we were intended to be. So that is where I think I will land the plane today. I hope that this has made some sense to you, and things for you to ponder. Right, these ideas, because this is where I intend to go in the coming weeks and months, is to explore these ideas a little bit more fully. I know it may seem a little woo to people, but I think that is ultimately the nature of the world around us, and that the way that we fit into it. And so with that, again, I will invite you to, if you have not made your plans yet, if you can, try to get to Flattoberfest. I would love to see you there, make some coffee, maybe do some noodling. We're going to make that happen. So again, I'm excited and terrified at the same time. So we got that. I can't wait for the water series either. I've been looking at it for a long time, and I'm just trying to put, how to put this in order in a way that all kind of unfolds and makes sense. Don't forget, I'll be back at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning Pacific time, and that is, of course, 10 o'clock Eastern time with Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. And also we'll come back in the evening at 5 p.m. for Sola Scriptura. So in the interim, thanks very much for dropping by. It's been great to hang out with you this morning, and hope to see you again soon. I'll put up contact information on the screen. Let's see if I can find that. Where's the, there's that. And we'll leave you again with a little old school music from Joe Ray and I. This is what have we got here? 1993, and the band was called Sleepyhead. And this is Joe Ray on guitar, Deanna Smith on vocals, as well as myself on backing vocals, Jim Rogers on vocals and drums, and I was playing bass and keyboards. And this is called Still. Take care.
All of the sweep me up over